Official tan or gone to a tanning booth or anything. Just, I'm proud of you.
Hi, Carrie, how you doing?
I was just didn't know if I missed out on the traveling. I didn't
No,
know.
I wish.
We're going
Nice
to go ahead and get started.
Be some sunshine, wouldn't it?
Welcome to the Monday, February 24th, 2014, Washougal City Council Workshop Meeting. Rose, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Plinsky,
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel,
Here.
Councilmember Greenlee,
Here.
Councilmember Freeman,
Here.
Councilmember Shoemaker,
Here.
Councilmember Lindsay,
Here.
Councilmember Boger.
Thank you. Councilmember Boger did give me a call yesterday and let me know that he has a presentation at Vancouver City Council tonight. He'll be here as quickly as he's done with that. Are there any members of the public that would like to address council this evening? Seeing none at this point, we will go, we do have a slight adjustment to the agenda. We will not have Renee here for a presentation this evening. Two reasons. One, the individual that's putting together the video is not completed yet, has the flu, and is probably 2 weeks from being done, so we wanted to make sure that that was all done, finished, and ready to go as we got moving on it. And in addition, we have some meetings tomorrow in regards to events for this year, so we wanted to make sure that we had all the information to you, so we'll be bringing her back within the next couple of meetings to do that presentation for you. Going to new business, community development. Mitch, PSU's convergence planning.
Thank you, Your Honor and Council. This is really just a heads up of a partnership between the Port and Portland State University as well as the city. Councilmember Lindsay was at our initial kickoff meeting of this. We have a memorandum of understanding with the Port and PSU, but their Masters of Planning at the Tulane School of Planning at Portland State are doing a plan for their thesis, and they're working on the Port, and it is the project purpose statement. It's probably the best thing that I could do to read for you, is to develop a community vision for the waterfront that connects and complements the burgeoning downtown, supporting the creation of a local and regional identity for the city of Washougal. So they're really working with the Port, the city, and the community about how do we connect that waterfront downtown area, or the waterfront at our doorstep down there, to the downtown with the parks, the trail, and everything else. And they're very energetic. It's a very quick turnaround. It's over in May, so they don't have a lot of time. But they are now going to be starting to go out into the community and talking to stakeholders and community members, and so I wanted you to make sure that you knew about it, so if someone asks you a question, then you would be in the know of what's going on there. And we are going to schedule a time pretty quick here to have them come in and do their presentation to us as well, but we really just kind of got things kind of solidified with the MOU, and they're working on their plan right now, so that will be up and coming. But just kind of a heads up that they'll be out in the community talking with folks.
Questions for Mitch?
Okay.
Okay. Comprehensive plan.
Again, another heads up, as part of the 2016 comprehensive plan update that we as a city within Clark County, a Growth Management Act county, we have to comply with. And so we are, the board has made one decision already related to population. I don't know if you've seen that or followed that, but based on, they get population projections from the Office of Financial Management, and there's a low, medium, and high, and they chose the medium, which is what we were looking at, and we're happy that they chose that. What that population is roughly, it's about 562,000. Interestingly enough, that is less than the population that we have under our current plan, and so by about 20,000, which that plan went to 2024. So really what it means is we're not looking at any kind of expansion of boundaries, which is good, because then we're not looking at expansions of capital facility plans and updating those, which can become very costly to us. The next thing that they're going to be looking at doing is picking an employment projection. They don't have to pick employment projection. It's not required in the Growth Management Act, but it's a good thing to do. And they've had some economists give them some information, and they've been presented with 4 basically steps that they could choose, kind of a low, medium, high, and then an aggressive, if you will. Even the aggressive one is would need about 5,700 acres of employment land. Under the current plan that we have right now, we have about 6,700 acres of employment land. Again, so if they chose that high-end one, we would not have to look at expanding boundaries. Every municipality, as directors, we meet, we're all on the same page, is that we believe that that's, you know, a good step to take forward, and a good recommendation to make. La Center will probably make a grab for some land near I-5, but beyond that, there won't be any other expansions. My recommendation is we don't look at any expansions.
Is that related to the casino?
I don't know if that's related to the casino, or they're just looking at more employment land out near the, I don't think it's on that side of,
Okay.
I think it's west, or excuse me, east of I-5. But this plan, I mean, it maintains, with these projections, it would maintain our existing urban growth boundaries. It really, you know, it streamlines our approach to this mandate that we would have to, you know, update a lot of things. And so I think it would, in the end, would save us a lot of money. And I believe that the other municipalities feel the same way, you know, at least from the director's standpoint, they feel the same way. So unless the board on Wednesday, they have a work session on Wednesday, unless they start taking some very aggressive approach, they really want to bump that number up for some reason, then that would necessitate us looking at expansions to boundary. We probably won't say anything, we won't chime in, we'll just let them pick that. But if they go down a path, I guess I'm looking to council if they, you know, if you feel I should step in and on your behalf and say, we think we should keep it at the lower projection so we don't have to expand our boundary. Or if you think I should look at moving it out further. Or if anybody has a take on it.
I remember when we last went through this in, what, 5, 6, and 7? It's a huge project. You end up having to update all your capital facilities plans and all of your long-term plans. And that ends up costing significant money in terms of consulting firms and engineering firms. And it's also a huge load on staff. So absent any compelling reason to do something else, it would seem to me that the wisdom here is to, if we can stay with what we've got and minimize what we have to spend modifying plans and all of those things to comply with a new goal, that strikes me as being the smart path.
Dave?
When's our next opportunity to take another look at this? Suppose we adopted Paul's suggestion. When's the next opportunity to take a look at it?
We would do an evaluation, it's every 7 years that we would look
So
at
it'd be
it.
7 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and my objection to, I like your plan, except for one thing. I don't want to limit the city of Washougal. And if I understand it correctly, expanding that boundary gives us the opportunity to open up new areas for building.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing, is that what the numbers say now, based on, there's an analysis that's done at the county level with the GIS mapping called vacant buildable lands. And what it does is it looks at all the land that you have as residential, all the land that you have as commercial, all the land that you have as industrial, countywide. And, you know, right now we have over 8,000 acres of residential vacant, ready to go. We have, I think it's about 31 commercial, 3,100 acres of commercial and about 36 of industrial. So given all those numbers and given the projections, we're still well within
Okay?
the
And
boundary that we have now.
if we got another economic boom like we had in, what, 2006 to 2008, 2005 to 2008? Would we still be within the
Well, I mean, if you look at, so just take jobs, for instance. If we were looking at a one job per one household, we would have to grow jobs at 2.2% every year over the life of that, of the plan. What they're recommending is being over that, but it'd be about I don't know if it's 6 or percent growth. So it's still a pretty big estimate of growth when it comes. And the other point that I should make is that it's mandated that we look at the plan at that interval. We can look at it sooner than that, but
Okay.
it's mandated that we do it at least in that
Okay,
interval.
and that's my concern. As another general consideration, I don't like the county and the state telling us what we can do in Washougal. I object to that.
Yeah.
I object to the whole concept of the planning and the limiting the development and all that sort of thing. I like sprawl. I see nothing wrong with it.
Mitch, how bound would we be to the county commissioners if they made that decision?
Well-
Most everything that I'm familiar with is mandated by the state that we have to follow.
Well, the only thing, there's nothing that says that we have to pick a number on jobs, nothing. It's just an exercise that they go through, and it informs the process. But what we do have in place is we have countywide planning policies that we all agree to, that we all say we'll work together in order to accommodate the growth that.
It's the models.
Yes, and so to that end, we would be working with the county, myself, as well as all the other directors of municipalities within the county, would be working to how do we allocate this. From where we sit, we have pretty good amount of land, both residentially, both employment-wise, commercial. I think we're doing pretty good. The biggest thing is if we were going to expand, and I think Paul hit on it a bit, is the plan. It's not only the plan, but we'd have to build that infrastructure. We'd have to put those pipes in the ground. We'd have to put the roads on the ground. We'd have to start doing those things in order to make those areas expand. Now, development would take care of us a lot of that, but we still have to have the ability to serve it as well.
Do you recall offhand how much acreage we have in the two urban growth areas that we've got now?
You know what? I know you asked me this question, and I wrote it down. On the northwest side, we have about, there's 600 acres in the urban growth boundary, and on the northeast side, we have about 560, and that breaks down to, on the northwest, we have about 176 of the employment, 25 acres of commercial, 35 acres of multifamily, and 365 acres of single family. And then on the northeast, we have 350 acres of business, 85 of single family, 52 of commercial, and 80 of multifamily. So we still got a bit of land there.
Can you, at some point in the next couple of weeks, can you email that information out to myself and the council? With
Absolutely.
a quick map yourself?
Yep.
Or again, a map that shows those two areas. Don't I have to break down by colors where all of them are or any of that, but just the two major areas and
Yep.
what acreage inside of there
You bet.
constitutes that?
Mhm.
Thank you. Other thoughts, suggestions?
Yeah, I have a question about whether you can diagram what the growth was over the last decade. So it can be, we can see what we did go through in good times.
Just in sheer number of new development?
Population
Yeah,
or?
well, you're comparing population and jobs and,
Maybe annexations.
Yeah, no, I think that a lot of that works. I think a lot of that work has been done because which I can probably get my hands on. You can, when the number was picked in 04, 05, 06, 07, ultimately, the board chose a high number for population, and then so that's why you see the boundaries where they are. Obviously, things fell after that, and so I think that the approach that they're taking now, at least the recommendations from staff at the county is, look, we've had a pretty significant economic downturn, and it's going to take us some time to get out of that. We see things happening, but we want to make sure that we plan accordingly. And what we have now, based on the numbers around us, is we're looking at it and going, there's the plan that we have in place will accommodate the growth that we're expecting right now. And it does get expensive in order to start updating all those plans again for something that may happen. If it starts happening, I think we'll all be on the same boat. It says, well, let's update the plans, let's get it going, and
How long does it take to do that? You
Well,
can move quickly on it?
not real quickly, no, but, within this plan, they gave us, it got pushed, because, and the state did that. We were mandated to have it updated 2 years, or this year, actually, but it got pushed by 2 years because we just didn't have the money. And the state recognized that for all the municipalities. And we got no money from the state in order to help us do that.
Okay.
It's an involved process.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
Again, it's meant to be deliberate as well, because it's not meant to just take a shotgun approach and come back
Yeah.
a year later and say, you know what, change your mind.
I mean, here we are at the beginning of 2014. We've already made two decisions. Well, one decision's been made by the board. They're about to make another one, and we're working back from 2016. So,
Okay, thanks.
Any other thoughts? Okay.
I'll get that info on the acreage.
That'd be great, thank you.
Mhm.
We haven't actually broken any of that down inside those areas to where those acres would be. It's just somewhere in that.
No, we've got
600
them broken
acres.
down. We've got it broken down. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Mitch.
You bet.
Trevor? You'd like to talk about a professional services agreement?
Yes, in regards to our automated meter reading project. Let's see if I can pull this up. I've just got 6 or 7 slides to go off of.
Yeah, PSA has many different meanings, doesn't it?
Yeah, the acronym has multiple definitions, right? So last spring, when I first came back into the department after being on special assignment, there were some high-level technology investments we were considering. One of those was automated meter reading, being able to actually send the data directly to utility billing and basically delete physically visiting the meter every other month since we bill bi-monthly. We've continued that process and are looking at procuring this specific project. During that time, we've also had conversations with McKinstry Ascension and looked at their potential services they could provide on this project. We do have this budgeted for 2014. This specific contract was not specifically spelled out. So I want to give you a quick update on the fixed network project and what we're looking to execute with McKinstry. So 5 components specifically for tonight. The guaranteed pricing inside the contract, the cost neutral nature of the contract if able to secure a grant through the Department of Commerce, sole sourcing opportunities, contract administration, and then the measurement or the quantitative data that goes along with the project. So at a high level, looking at our meter reading, there would be retrofits at each meter, whether it be residential, commercial, industrial, where we actually install ERTs or they send a signal back to a fixed network antenna or collector. The ROI, the return on investment for this project, is anticipated at 5 to 7 years. In aggregate, the project is estimated about $1 million to $1.1 million in its totality. Obviously, with going with a newer technology, it gives us an opportunity to be able to redeploy human assets, to be able to focus on operation and maintenance rather than reading meters on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. This also equates to reduction in work order costs and revisits to meters for rereads or any other type of discrepancies that we currently have with our handheld technology. So in working with McKinstry, some of the risk associated with the project is shifted to McKinstry as the prime on the project. Obviously, the city still has some exposure, specifically the guaranteed price up front. There's no cost overruns for unforeseen issues or problems compared to the classic public bid and in accordance with state law. So the criteria that's been offered from the Department of Commerce is 25% grant opportunity if it's associated with a performance contract, which McKinstry is certified within the state as an ESPC. Again, the project is estimated right around 1 million to 1.1, so a grant or an ask in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $275,000. It's expected that the grant would be more than cover McKinstry's cost for rendering the services, and if the grant's not secured, there's no responsibility by the city of Washougal for payment. In essence, performance-based. So again, adding value around the sole source component. Currently, we have Itron parts. That's a specific vendor in the meter reading industry. There's the ability to have compatibility with, mix and match of meters and ERTs and different equipment and technologies. Being able to streamline and sole source ultimately becomes a cheaper project for us as we move forward. There's also software interface with utility billing. We've been working that through our pilot. The pilot is currently underway downtown. We've got about 150 to 200 connections. We wanted to try and pilot the specific technology before making a full investment just to do due diligence. And again, it eliminates the possibility of low bid, low quality.
What's an ERT?
An ERT. So currently, if you look at your meter box, there's a round plastic, we call it a touchpad sensor, that we actually touch with a wand physically to get the reading. Instead of having a sensor at the lid, there's an ERT that comes up to the lid that sends a signal to a collector. And so through that, it's sent directly to the utility billing department.
Where's the sensor?
The sensor, it comes right off the meter. There's a wire that comes off currently for the touchpad sensor, so it would be a retrofit. We'd actually cut the touchpad sensor off and retrofit it with a sensor to be able to send the signal.
And how does it transmit it to a satellite or what?
To a collector, fixed network, so it's almost like it goes up to a satellite antenna, and then that information is disseminated back to the software program here at City Hall.
Okay.
Excuse me, that's what we're doing now.
That's the pilot that we've engaged in.
That's the pilot.
Right.
And are those antennae that you're talking about already exist?
No, those would be the retrofit as part of the project.
Not the one on the meter, but the collector.
That would be part of the upgrade package. We don't currently have collectors in place short of the pilot that was set in downtown to be able to collect the data.
And would you put those on existing cell phone towers or what?
So in running the diagnostic, the vendor that we've been working with is Georgia Pacific and Genpack. And so they'd run a diagnostic as far as the topography issues of being able to get those specific signals. So there's areas that we've identified. Most of those are off of our existing structures, our reservoir towers. Mount Norway, the water tower up there, our lower reservoirs on 32nd Street, as well as Woodburn Hill, which is on the west side that feeds Granite and Lookout Ridge.
Topography around here is a real consideration.
Yeah, that was one of our first concerns,
telemetry.
even considering this type of technology investment.
Well, you sound like you're on top of it. Thank you.
So again, this is utilized with multiple school districts and other special purpose districts as far as the energy efficiency savings. So this isn't a specific flow, it just gives you a high level opportunities in engaging with McKinstry, reduced operating costs in aggregate, again, 5 to 7 year return on investment, improved efficiency, again, looking at the efficiency and effectiveness of the utilities all the way through and on the heels of our utility rate analysis and cost of service. The GMAX, or guaranteed pricing, that's offered that limits the cost overruns, obviously. Department of Enterprise Services approved contracting method, and the opportunity to engage with the performance contract with McKinstry. Guaranteed project outcome, again, the quantitative that comes out with the measurements, being able to make sure we hit our marks as far as the energy efficiency and establishing a baseline with reduced fuel cost going to each meter, the labor that's associated with that, the rereads and continual visits out into the infrastructure, into the area, and the project management services. Obviously, that's part of the proposed contract and moving forward if we're successful in receiving the grant from Department of Commerce.
Is this a tried and true technology?
Yeah, so there's always hedging on cutting edge, bleeding edge. When's the potential right time to jump in on, how well it's come to fruition. We started installing touchpad meters in the late 1990s, early 2000, in anticipation of being able to touch those with a wand and then ultimately retrofit those into an automated meter reading overview. So this technology, at least in the water industry, because there's gas, natural gas, electricity, all types of different automated meter reading that happens. But I feel this is a solid technology to be able to invest in at this point, that it's not out on the bleeding or cutting edge. It's a well-known technology.
So we're not on the bleeding edge on this one?
No, in my opinion.
Has there ever been any attempt at cooperation with people who read meters? Electrical people read them, gas people read them?
Yeah, so in setting up our pilot program, we communicated with Clark Public Utilities as well as Northwest Natural Gas.
I see.
So in the immediate area where we have the 150 to 200 connections in the downtown book or the meter reading book, we're able to pick up CPUs readings, and so they're interested in that. Currently, they do a mobile network where they actually drive their routes. So they're looking at potentially doing partnership, to a further extent with us if and when we do go full-blown automated meter information investments, as well as natural gas. So coordinating those efforts and what makes sense and grabbing those reads, whether it's gas, electricity, water, whatever it may be.
As usual, you're way ahead of me.
Other questions for Trevor?
So to recap, there's no risk to the city here, basically, because McKinstry is, McKinstry or whatever the name is assuming that the risk of getting the grant. And so the work they're going to do is they're not going to get paid unless they obtain the grant, and then we implement the system.
Yeah, meet the criteria of the grant that's administered by the Department of Commerce. There's an investment grade audit, as you'll see, embedded inside of the proposed scope of services, establishing that baseline as far as how much labor we're utilizing and how much fuel and how many extra trips we're making to each one of those meters to be able to justify and quantify the investment.
Good.
So we've been very pleased with McKinstry's responsiveness and willingness to partner with us thus far.
Was 25% of a grant?
Yeah.
Potentially.
And then the 75% the city pays?
Currently, that's how it's framed.
And you mentioned that we wouldn't be letting go employees, we'd be sending them out to work on other projects, operation maintenance.
Right.
So, right now, we're paying for a physical visit to the house. We're gonna pull those guys off, put them elsewhere. How are we gonna cover the costs of having 75% responsibility of the new system plus 100% of employees? I don't wanna see them losing their job. I don't want you to think that my question is that I want them to be replaced. I'm just saying, how are we gonna do both?
Well, obviously, we've had some robust studies that have been completed for us. We've had some public-private partnership work that was done for us on behalf. SAIC put that together. We've also had some other reports put together as far as the efficiency and effectiveness of the utilities and working with FCS Group and Karen Johnson. So we know there's a need for additional operation and maintenance. What this infusion of technology allows us to do is be able to redeploy those human assets to get out and do the operation and maintenance pieces of valve exercising and flushing and hydrant maintenance and, tank recoating and, replacing valve clusters and services and everything that's associated with a utility. So, in essence, investing in the technology frees up human assets to do operation and maintenance that currently is not getting done.
It's a one-time
Investment.
with some small percentage of it to carry it over time to maintain the system. But it doesn't cost $1 million a year. Whatever the cost of the AMI is in total.
Yeah.
Is a one-time investment. It is programmed into the financials for the utility. You may recall in the studies that Trevor was referring to, best practice would have us plus 3 or 4 employees in our utilities. That's expensive, but we can't go on forever not meeting those demands on our system, or we'll pay the price later. So Trevor is scrubbing his entire department for any efficiency and effectiveness he can, so that we can not increase the staff to that extent and maybe make some one-time capital investments. He's also looking at some other things. So this is the one that actually pays some really good dividends.
So this is to put the equipment in place?
Correct.
And then, there's going to be costs in maintaining that equipment and replacing parts and over the years?
Minimal, but
Minimal,
again, we also have our
comparatively.
ER&R programs that are set up that would also be set up in this case as far as the software is concerned. Potentially the $750,000 of where do we get that to come up with our match, you also have in utility reserves. So there's money there, and it's already been calculated in at some point that these things would be put into place in order to do that. Your rate structure that you've approved already includes those things in there to be able to carry those forward.
Right.
It's a win-win. And these employees are going to get great new job skills, other than just,
Yeah,
They're doing it.
They're just going to be doing more of it.
they already do that?
Some,
I see.
right, but not as often as we should in some of the different things. There's different details for the different chores, but
And above and beyond the utility, operation and maintenance needs on the partnership side, as far as interdepartmental, there's a real uptick to being able to utilize that information real time in utility billing. We're able to flag accounts and see accounts that, meters that don't stop overnight to see if there's a leak that's occurring.
That's nice.
Better customer service interface ultimately. So there's an upside on the interface side as well.
So Trevor, on the customer service counter side, can a member of staff go in and just call up information or get an update when they need it?
Yeah,
Is it capable to cause that thing to,
Yeah, it can be programmed, so you can get meter reads, every 30 minutes, every hour. You can flag accounts, like I said, that don't stop overnight or have, astronomical, consumption amounts during the winter or summer months that doesn't trend with how their, specific account looks. So
just thinking about things in sale of homes or that type of stuff and a change in who's responsible for it? Is that something somebody come in and say, I'm here to pay my final bill, we're out of the house today, it's somebody else's tomorrow?
we pull up the final read.
Do we still need to send somebody to do that, or can somebody from the counter say, let me get that right now?
I think at startup, we may have some follow-up out in the field, but ultimately we should be able to do that customer service from the counter with limited tap out for crews to go, get a final read. Obviously, shutting service off for snowbirders or people out of town, or they have a water leak, those type of services, we still need to go wheel the curb stop off so we can shut the water off. But the technology is pretty much as far as you'd like to take it, even to, incorporating in customers being able to log in and look at their account real time as far as trending and how it looks during peak month or low month. And so there's a lot of opportunities to be able to phase that in.
Paul?
I remember we've done some business with McKinstry before, and that we're very happy because the typical agreement, the typical way that we work with McKinstry is that not only do they prove their performance with numerical audits, this is not qualitative stuff, this is quantitative. but also that, I mean, I think at one point we looked at I can't remember whether we actually did it or not. We looked at a deal with them where we were actually there were going to be some savings. And we got part of those savings, and the other part went to pay for the project. No savings, no payment on the part of the city. And McKinstry has been statewide so good at those kinds of projects that the Department of Enterprise Services has put them into a very special category of contractor. And so it strikes me, number one, that McKinstry is the right people to do this. And number two, that this is a great project. It makes a lot of sense. It saves us money. As a quick aside, as an apocryphal story, kind of along with pavement maintenance being something that you don't think about, exercising valves is something that you don't think about. The apocryphal story is that the city of New York has 2 approximately 20-foot diameter tunnels that bring water to the city from reservoirs 100 miles away. They didn't exercise the valves. It got to the point that they were so afraid that if they closed one of the valves, they would not get it open, that they spent $3.5 billion digging a new 20-foot tunnel so they would have 3 in case they had to close one of them, just because they hadn't exercised valves in 50 years. So this is, I mean, that's not going to happen to us, but it is an issue that we have to exercise these valves.
I thought you said it was apocryphal.
I'm sorry?
Apocryphal.
3.5 billion is apocryphal.
Oh, I thought you said this was an apocryphal story.
That's real.
Yeah,
So if apocryphal means apocalypse, you mean?
yes,
In that sense, okay.
yes.
Sometimes it means not true.
Oh, no, okay, no, apocalypse is what I meant.
So
Thank you.
I was thrown off a little.
Thank you for the clarity.
Other questions for Trevor? We also have folks here from McKinstry if you have questions directly in regards to their involvement. And
Kevin Goad with McKinstry Ascension. We've been working with closely on the proposed scope of services.
Thank you for coming.
Well, you said something about if a meter runs for 24 hours, does the program catch that and flag it? Or does it have to be done at the end of the month when the billing comes and you've got this giant bill? Is it smart enough to do that in advance?
We
Or
can-
as it's happening?
We can set it up account by account. Obviously, the Pendleton Woolen Mills and other industries, run 24 hours.
Right.
And so there wouldn't be much value there, but single-family residential or
Councilmember Polinsky's home.
potentially,
house.
right? there
Well,
might be
it
quite a
came
bit
to
of value
mind,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to be our,
The guinea pig, see how well it works.
Yeah, so you can drill specific account types and be able to set those flags for like overnight no stoppage or, exorbitant amount of flow or consumption, in a 48 or 72 hour period. So,
wow. The future's here.
Trevor, thank you.
It's really- And then people won't be chased by dogs.
Should
That
be
would be a
anyway,
scary job.
everything's out of the street.
Oh,
Jennifer.
I'm sorry, I had just one further quick question for Trevor. Are you satisfied that you have enough locations, or are you going to have to use a utility pole for one of your collectors? I'm thinking advanced, looking at Jennifer, that if we're going to have to use utility poles, do we need to put that into a franchise agreement?
we don't anticipate having to utilize any utility poles, whether those are CPU or Frontier.
Great.
Off of our own structures, we should be able to meet our
Great.
needs for the project.
Great, thank you.
Jennifer, Comcast agreement.
Good evening. We are going to go over the Comcast franchise agreement highlights tonight. We've been working on it for a while to renew it. So we're very excited to be able to finally bring this forward and get it signed and
Copy.
be done with it for a few years. The agenda, oh my goodness, that did not come through very well. We're going to go over the highlights of the new agreement, the next steps, and then we actually have Tim Goodman. He's our Comcast rep. He's here for any comments or questions. That's better. So the highlights of the new agreement is we based it off of the Frontier agreement, which we renewed in between the prior Comcast agreement and this one. And it's been reviewed by our city attorney, of course, and Comcast to make sure that the two agreements are more in alignment. They weren't different, they were just in a different format, so now they both are in alignment in the same format. It's a 10-year term with one automatic 5-year extension at the discretion of Comcast, and the franchise fee remains at 5%.
Excuse me, how much dollar-wise, how much is 5%?
We will get there in just a moment. I apologize, we did not check this to see how well it would come through after uploading it to Keynote. I did not prepare it in Keynote, as you can see. The public educational and governmental access channel fees, based on our analysis, we went through and looked at the equipment that we purchased in this room to be able to put our council meetings on television, how much that needed to be per month to renew that in the ER&R program in 6 years was a recommended replacement date from the contractor. Looked at what was in the fund balance currently and determined that we can actually take the current fee of $1 a month per subscriber down to $0 for the first 6 years of the contract. Due to the fund balance, the money that we've been collecting from both Comcast and Frontier, keeping, of course, reserve in the fund to make sure that we can replace the equipment without the fees, and then the replacement schedule. And then after 6 years, we're anticipating that it would increase up to 35 cents per subscriber per month, which is also less than $1 that it currently is. So that's very positive for the community. They get to pay less on their cable bill. We will review that at the around the 6 year time frame to see what that needs to be at that point. But we're anticipating the 35 cents. And some other highlights we included at section 4.2, I believe is where it's at. 4.2.4 is where the vehicles are required to be notified or identified as Comcast trucks if they're working in the right of way.
I would just observe that Comcast already does that. There's somebody else in the community I'm really aiming that at.
We'll work on that one next. So to answer your question, Joyce, here is the franchisee, and I did actuals for 11, 12, and 13 of what we received in as revenue for the 5% franchise fee, and then what we budgeted for 14. Based on what we received so far year to date, we're a little under that amount, but they do fluctuate throughout the year.
What causes the income to go up? Is that more subscribers?
More gross revenues for the company.
And when their pricing goes up.
Okay, so it's not more subscribers, it's more the pricing.
It's
Probably both.
probably both.
Both, yeah.
Could Comcast help us with that?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. So, yeah, we are, our subscribership is, it's not going like this, it steadily rises. And then whenever there's a rate adjustment for our video product, then, the city receives increases, increase, according to that as well, so.
Yeah, I've noticed that steady increase.
Jill will get you a card after the meeting's over.
All right. So moving on to next steps. The agreement will be on the consent agenda for March 10th to authorize the mayor to sign. And then we will contact Frontier as well to change their PEG fees. We've currently been collecting $1, recently started collecting $1 per subscriber for them as well. And we will take that down to the $0 for the next 6 years, and then reevaluate at that point and notify them of the new fee. So with that, I will open up for questions and comments, and know that Goodman is here as well.
Welcome to.
Brent?
Are there utility taxes applied to the Comcast bill?
Yes.
Just wondered.
Both franchise fee and a utility tax, yes.
I'm sorry, Brent, I didn't hear you.
Is the utility tax applied to the Comcast bill?
We don't have a utility tax on cable.
We don't.
They have, that's the one utility that we don't tax, and I think it's because we have, I'm pretty sure, I'll recheck my cheat sheet revenue guide, but I'm pretty sure with the franchise fee, we don't.
You can't do both.
I think you probably can, but we don't.
Okay.
I don't believe. I will triple check that and send out an email, but I'm pretty sure that in the presentation that we did on revenues, that was one that we didn't utilize. That could be my memory as well.
Other questions?
I'm good.
This can be that easy?
I'll introduce myself. Tim
Welcome.
Director of Government Affairs with Comcast. I've been inserted into the process just in the last 3 weeks. I guess that's why it's getting done. So
Exactly.
Anyway.
Before Sanford left, he left a note and said,
Right, Sanford Inouye, who had been Comcast representative here, retired at the first of the year. So at this point in time, I'm taking his place. That may change once we get another body on board, but for now, I'll be your representative. So I've had a few phone conversations and came up to Washougal actually for the first time ever a couple of weeks ago. And so, and met with Dave and went through the franchise. And one thing I wanted to say is we appreciate working with your staff. Sometimes these types of agreements can get very adversarial, and this is how we believe they should work. And
I'm thinking of another jurisdiction where I've seen that happen.
so this has been very nice, I should say. So I wanted to say that, and we are, happy with the agreement that we've come to, and look forward to working with you and your staff, and hopefully the more successful we are, the more money you receive from us. And one thing I wanted to encourage you that, if you ever receive, a complaint from your constituents, please make sure that we get those complaints, because we want to take care of those. And we actually have, whenever we receive a complaint from a jurisdiction or a city or county where we have a franchise agreement, we have what we call an executive escalations team that jumps on those immediately, that is based in Beaverton. And it's not, you're not getting a call center or something like that in Texas or the Philippines or wherever. It's here locally. And they make a point to make the customers happy and do what is right for them. And so I wanted to encourage you, if you ever receive just one complaint, we want to hear about it, because we would like to make those customers happy. So we don't want to lose that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for what you do for our community.
Sure.
any other questions on franchise agreements? Okay, if not, we'll move to public comments. Second opportunity for anybody that would like to comment to council. I'm seeing heads shaking no. I have nothing for you at this point. Any items from council?
I do. Yep. I wanted to indulge a bit of time to just kind of go over a section in our city council rules of procedure, particularly attendance, which we had a bit of an issue with at the last meeting. I actually made copies for everybody. I think I have enough so everybody can actually read it and see what I'm talking about. I just really like to have a discussion about the policy.
Glad.
Particularly 1.3, which is the attendance policy. And these are the rules that we established for ourselves, has been pointed out to us. I also kind of want to take a look at state code. In my opinion, and this is the reason I'm bringing it up, state code is pretty succinct and concise in my opinion. Basically, it just flat out says, a council position shall become vacant if the council member fails to attend 3 consecutive regular meetings of the council without being excused by the council. That's as I say, pretty concise, pretty succinct and to the point. And, in our rule or policy, we've inserted several sentences that I think might not really be necessary. In my opinion, we could potentially take out sentence number 2, 3, and 4 and amend number 5. And, basically the point I'm making is we're adults. Basically, we answer to the citizens and to our colleagues, really, on the council. And I don't see the need for council members to have to contact the mayor or their designee. And I'm not really interested in the reasons for my colleagues' absence. That's their personal business. That's just the way I feel. That's my opinion. As I say, we're all adults here. Usually, in this process, excusing a council member's absence is really just completely routine, and ultimately the decision falls on the council members to do that. So the extra steps within Section 1.3 really aren't necessary, in my opinion. So I'd just like to get other council members' thoughts on this particular policy and to see what everyone else thinks. Can I go?
David?
I'm not in complete agreement with you about being disinterested in our colleagues' reasons for being absent. In a perfect world, I would agree with you, absolutely. It's not a perfect world. Some of our colleagues in the past have been less than perfect. They've not shown up for reasons that weren't really valid. They were physically capable, they just lost interest. And they came back the third time so that they wouldn't lose their seat. But that was only after some coaxing from some people. I would hate to see the elimination of any provision that says we need to excuse them and we need to know the reason why.
Just a quick point of information.
Yeah.
We don't need to know a reason why. There's nowhere in your rules or in code or anything else that it says that we need to know a reason why. Currently, the process is set up. If council members are not going to be present, you simply need to call myself or Jennifer or send us a note that says, I won't be in attendance tonight.
But this says, state the reason for his or her inability to attend the meeting.
We've never dug into that. In the last 4 years, we've never asked that unless it's been ventured forward.
Well, I'm
it's
thinking
here.
about the time before 4 years
Oh,
anyway.
Gotcha, I'm sorry.
We may not have been required to do it, but it certainly is stated that we're supposed to.
By your rules.
Right, which means we should be following our rules. So if we don't think it's necessary, they should be removed, is what you're saying, I realize.
Exactly,
That's the
and,
conversation.
ultimately, the decision to excuse each and every time falls on colleagues. And, are we to sit in judgment regarding
Absolutely,
their
yeah.
reasons?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then you have a vote. You can vote yes, or you can vote no.
Absolutely.
Kind of, hang on, Brent, you had your hand up there.
Well, I know I'm a lawyer, but I'm not really much into detailed procedures, and I think things are often better handled on a case-by-case basis. And just sitting here, I'm thinking, just a statement from somebody, I'm not going to be there, that isn't quite enough for me. I don't care whether they contacted the mayor or his designee or not. If someone called me and didn't contact the mayor or designee and said, I broke my leg, and I conveyed that to the rest of the council, I think that'd be a good reason to excuse that person. So what I don't, I don't know exactly where I'm at on this, but I'd like to see fewer procedures and more substance to our policy on absences.
Oh, can I go?
I'm not sure why, it seems like a conflict here that we're being excused by the council, but we have to report it to the mayor.
Exactly.
That makes no sense to me,
No.
that we either get excused by the mayor, or we get excused by the council. Whoever excuses us should be the one that we contact, in my opinion. So it seems like a
The mayor
conflict.
brings it to the council.
Yeah. Do you have any memory of why it's
Yeah,
to the mayor?
All of this came back to accountability. And
Yeah,
from the administrative standpoint, folks, we don't care how you do this. You set your
Right.
rules however you set your rules. If you don't have rules, we go back to state code. For me, it's pretty simple.
yeah,
There are certain things that you have for accountability, and that's why my designee is Jennifer. She's the city clerk, the keeper of records. We don't have a dog in the fight. We don't end up being somebody that somebody contacts who doesn't show up, the message doesn't get delivered, any of that. And frankly, and I'm not a council member, you all are, frankly, if you don't have the ability to call Jennifer or myself to let us know that you're not gonna be there, maybe the job of being a council member is a little too tough. But that's just me. It seems pretty simple and pretty basic. Amazes me we're even still talking about the subject. There was enough ambiguity at the last meeting that you've got rules. I'm gonna follow the rules. I don't care who the council member is. Doesn't matter. You've got certain rules that say you do this. You can suspend your rules at any point, as you did last time. That's fine. That's the way you do it. But I'm not, and this gets back to 2-3 years ago, I've cautioned the council before, I am not going to lead your meetings, and I'm not gonna be the chief executive officer of the city out of my hip pocket. I'm not gonna make it up as I go. That's why you have these things. Whatever you all decide to do is fine. A council a year from now, a month from now, 10 years from now can do whatever they want. That's fine. I like rules. Just let us know what they are, and we'll keep you playing between them. David or Joyce, one of the two of you had.
Joyce, why don't you go ahead?
I think, I agree with Brad. I think if I called somebody and said I won't be, another member of the council, I won't be there tonight, or whatever, that should be sufficient unless somebody felt they needed to follow that up. I think the purpose in my mind is, if you're not going to be someplace, it's nice for the place to know you're not going to be there. Because the reason is not necessarily important why you're there, because your dog ran away or you broke your leg. You're not there, and your vote isn't there, and it's important we have a quorum, or that we know that we're gonna have enough people to do business. But it seems to me it's enough to tell another council member or a phone call or whatever.
If this same council member, instead of breaking their leg, called me and said, I'm at the Moose, and I'm having a good time, and I think I'm just not, I'm just not gonna make the council meeting. I don't think I'd vote to excuse them under that circumstance. No matter, and I'm a Moose member, no matter how fun it might be at the Moose, that's not a good excuse, and even if they complied with the procedures, I wouldn't want to excuse them.
Well, what if they just said, I won't be there, and you had no reason?
If they said, if I won't be there and it's a personal reason, I would vote to excuse them. I give them the benefit of the doubt.
Unless it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Becomes a pattern or something.
Yeah.
pattern
Again,
happens.
as was noted before, and we don't follow up on this, we certainly can if you choose that we should do that. As was mentioned a few minutes ago, we're adults. We figure if you're
Right.
calling one of us to let us know you're not gonna be there, you got a reason you're not gonna be there. David?
I agree with Brent about wanting some reason to be excused. On the other hand, I note that the mayor has set a rather high standard. He had major surgery a week ago, and he's here tonight. That's a pretty high standard to keep up with. And it sets a wonderful example. I think we're remiss in not trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I don't think we've ever had an instance where anything's ever been questioned, and we certainly have procedures
Yes,
put in place
counsel.
to do things by phone and by video as well. So,
I like your idea of taking some of the wording out of here. I am a little concerned about taking out the provision for, being, reporting why you're not going to be here. It's good manners in addition to everything else.
I would observe that I think Brent really kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of that we don't actually have to put anything in here in terms of stating the reason. But if you actually want your fellow council members to vote to excuse you, then you need to give them a reason to do so. And that just out of kind of courtesy to each other, if it's a personal reason or some emergency, an automobile accident, or whatever it is, that passing on that kind of information to the other council members that you called or texted or whatever seems like a good idea if you actually want to be excused. If you don't care whether you're excused or not, then don't do it. But
Or if you want to be excused because you want to stay at the Moose a little longer. I mean, I think, of course, if it were me and I were going to cheat like that, I wouldn't tell you that's what I was doing. I would just
unless
say,
you were having a really good time.
I would say it's a personal reason or something like that and count on.
And then, on the other hand, it's also true that this isn't really an issue until there are 3 unexcused absences.
In a row.
And so
Right,
if,
in a row.
if somebody is at Moose or whatever, they just say, I'm not showing up, and go hang yourself as to why, then I agree with you, I can't see how I could vote to excuse them. And with 3 times in a row, I mean, maybe you vote to excuse them the first time, kind of a pig in a poke, you don't know why. But the second time, you're going to want a little more information, I think. And if the person actually wants to be excused, they're going to need to provide that information.
Note from your doctor.
I don't think we need to go that far.
Well, I said that with tongue in cheek, but I mean, my employer requires that. If I'm going to miss 3 days of work, I have to have a note from my doctor. It's the same type thing where I'm thinking, it's got to be a legitimate reason and not just some fly-by-night. But I do find it interesting that it says the mayor. It's funny because I've had a few absences over the 2 years, and I didn't contact you. I didn't even know it was necessary. I actually talked to David. And so, those are, and you conveyed it for me. I didn't even realize Jennifer was your designee. And that's not even really stated here. So there's some verbiage that needs to be clarified. We like rules. Rules are there for a good reason. So let's get them stated. Clearly.
You could put in a frequently used legal term for excuse for good cause. So it can't be some trivial, I want to watch the football game.
The Olympics
or
were
something
on.
like that.
This
Well, that
language
might be
is-
good cause.
I think this language, I'd have to double check it. It may just be from the model rules that it's either MRSC or AWC has model rules of procedure. Most of our language in the rules, except the ones that we've amended ourselves over the years, just come right out of those model rules. As you've experienced in this, I think the mayor just alluded to, this council, this has not really been an issue, right? Notwithstanding some ambiguity recently, but minor thing. This is intended for serious circumstances where you as a body really need a tool to be able to do the right thing on behalf of yourselves as a body and the community. Councilmember Shoemaker referenced that. And so that's what you're weighing, is how you feel about this council and how you're working together in that regard, and this potential for needing a real tool for accountability. And should you craft your own to achieve that, or do you rely on the model language? And there's no right or wrong to that, but I think that's the balance that every council looks at when they look at their accountability around rules or any other accountability that they have in.
Well, I guess I brought that up because I want to make sure that those little nuances aren't going to cause someone to be not excused. When I contact you, I didn't contact the mayor and I didn't contact Jennifer, and it's not stated. You know, those kinds of things we need to be flexible on, or we need to state it. If it's really important, it needs to be stated. We've done well. If there's been councils in the past that did poorly, since there have been.
But it's the council that votes to excuse.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the mayor or the designee or the clerk. It's.
Yeah,
or the
that's
chair,
what I
excuse
stated
me.
earlier.
Yeah, so it's the council, so I'm not quite sure why informing another council member wouldn't be appropriate.
Because they provide the administrative support to the council. Otherwise, you're
Right.
trying to contact council members who may or may not be contactable. But you can always reach the mayor or the city clerk.
And we just keep a record of it, I think, ultimately, at the end of the day. Now, we're probably pretty informal with that right now. Maybe we should be more formal, but we're pretty informal with that. It's more of a courtesy notice, I think, at the end of the day. But yeah, it's the council's decision whether to excuse or not.
We could always saddle the mayor pro tem with this.
Might be a good thing to have it in writing and quick email. We all email now in this generation, rather than a verbal, so it can be documented.
Emails are great.
When an email to council, if I emailed to the other 6 council members that I was going to be going, would that be an OPMA?
You get OPMA.
No, I
issues.
meant staff.
Oh, to staff, yeah. No, that should be,
I'm kind of hesitant.
phone or email should be appropriate notice,
Yeah.
I would think.
Good. Well, I'm kind of hesitant to tell my council members because maybe they're not going to show at the last minute.
That's right.
If I send something and it's documented to him or her or the mayor,
It's an
someone's going to get it.
It's an unlikely scenario, but there is the potential for there to be 4 absences, and somehow
Yeah.
the council doesn't realize that that's the case, and without a clearinghouse, you're not able
Yeah,
to
that's
ensure a
good.
quorum. That would be a very, peripheral sort of thing that could happen, but
That's a good point. That's why it's good to have a discussion.
Which probably had never happened in recent memory.
I'm not aware of it ever happening, but,
The only time we closed a meeting due to a lack of a quorum was when 2 council members walked out to prevent a vote.
Any other comments, thoughts on attendance rules?
Do we want to amend the person or people that should be contacted regarding the excuse or the reason prior to the meeting?
My preference would just be a simple statement: for good cause shown, the council may excuse an absent member.
She's asking who the council person should contact.
Anybody. They can contact the newspaper and have the newspaper come and if it's so long as council
Yay,
is,
Dawn.
so long as the council is convinced it's a good cause and that they believe that what they're being told, so long as it's reasonable for us to rely on it, I think anybody.
Would you do away with the administrative contacts?
No, if that was okay, if you called Dave Scott and Dave reported that this phone conversation took place, that some council member broke their arm or leg.
That's no excuse.
Yeah, depends on how bad.
Some people had to be hauled off by ambulance.
Yeah, or I was abducted by aliens. You know.
And we ended up at the Moose. I don't know how.
The moose again?
I mean, whatever, I mean, I just think, just leave it to our good judgment, and however we find out about
Don't
it.
check in on Facebook. We don't know.
I like-
Oh, you said on Facebook.
I'm
it
gonna
was-
drive past there on my way.
I like your
Next
wording.
couple Mondays.
I like your wording because it does leave it to our judgment.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
I agree.
communication is very easy these days. I firmly believe it's common courtesy, just, I can text you just as well as I can text the three of you. So it is strange to me that someone would not let somebody know. It's
Right.
pretty easy.
Sean, is this something
Do it
that the
pretty
staff
fast.
could bring back to us with a proposal based on the discussion?
I don't care. Frankly, it's up to you all now.
We just need to know what you wanted to say.
Yeah, that-
Well, you
yeah.
got a proposal over here
For
to,
good, well,
That part, yeah.
legal, a typical, often the court, the city attorney can correct, often that you'll go find a statute that says for good cause shown, the court may do this.
You could even say reasonable notice, and that
Upon
doesn't
reasonable
specify
Yeah.
specifically who it has to be given to.
Well, I think that part of it comes from the transition in 2009 and 2010. And that's why council members at the time, if I remember the discussions correctly, put in there the mayor or designee. You were here at the same meetings before we were seated as electeds. I mean, people were looking at each other going, is so-and-so gonna be here? I don't know. I don't know either. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
And nobody knew and nobody cared, nobody did anything else.
I would,
And I think that's one of the reasons that accountability went in and said, let's make sure that if you want to, as Paul said earlier, if you want to be excused, make a contact.
So we
And
just need
It's
to,
pretty easy to contact certain people. I don't care who you have do it, because again, you're spending more time on this than we spent
Yeah.
on an entire 50-page franchise document.
yes.
This
Good
is
point.
pretty simple, folks.
I would,
it's okay.
if I could, I would
It's a
suggest
request.
that
So,
certainly council member and/or city clerk is adequate, and that maybe you and Don can take 5 minutes and come up with something which could then be sent out by staff as a proposal.
Okay.
I get that there are some council members that don't want to call me, and that's fine. That's why there is always,
I told you there's a possibility I might, it turns out I can be here tonight, but I told you yesterday that there's a possibility that,
which I reported at 5 o'clock this evening.
Okay.
But that's why there's also the designee in there, which is Jennifer. I mean, at the time, the council took careful consideration on how it was put together so the system would work.
I'm really uncomfortable with removing that responsibility from the administration because of the record keeping. Although you do get a record of it in the minutes, I still like the idea of having the administration involved in it.
and I don't mind contacting the mayor or the designee. I just was never aware that it was here and didn't know who the designee was when I read this evening. So I'm with you. I like rules. I'm a rule keeper, and I want job descriptions, and these are great. These things are great. So let's just,
Well, the other thing is, I think the mayor is running the meeting and therefore deserves to know who's going to be here tonight. And one of the quick ways to do that is to report to the administration if you're not going to be here.
yeah.
and I'm more concerned about just missing a meeting for a trivial reason. I'm more concerned about that than about the process we find out about the reason.
Well, but it's stated. So since it's stated, we need to either follow it or remove it.
So you want to know the
I mean,
reason.
you're the attorney.
I want to state the reason for such absence. Okay, well, that helps, but, I just don't feel like coming.
I move that we appoint Brent a committee of one.
You
Give us
worked it
a
out,
proposed
Brent.
wording.
Unfortunately, we can't.
It
take
says
that.
contact, so I think that could be phone or it could be email. I don't see where that contact would have to be specifically.
We've always said it could be phone or email, it doesn't matter.
Smoke signal,
Just get
whatever,
hold of
yeah.
us somehow.
How about a committee of two, because Jennifer raised the issue, and you're interested in it.
Yeah, sure.
I like that.
Should be simple.
All right.
Any other items from council? Okay, we'll see everybody back here at 7 o'clock.